The Armenian mob. The criminal Michael used to be. The Armenian mob is not in GTA 5 to be a major threat. They're not built to dominate, but to show you who Michael DeSanta used to be before he became the man you actually play as. Who the Armenians actually are. The Armenian mob in GTA 5 is not the kind to show off. There's no territory painted on walls. They run a vehicle-based criminal operation out of Los Santos, structured, efficient, and almost boring in how deliberate it is. Simeon is their most visible face, moving stolen vehicles through a network built on leverage and transaction. He doesn't recruit soldiers to die for him. He hires people to do jobs. When the job's done, money moves. When it doesn't, consequences follow quietly, professionally. That's the personality. Not power through violence, power through process. They're not trying to own the streets. They're trying to own the margin, the difference between what a car costs on a lot and what it's worth stripped to the frame. It's unglamorous, it's sustainable, and it requires a specific kind of person, someone who can keep emotion completely out of the equation. Simeon himself is easy to dismiss. He comes across as slick and abrasive, a car dealer's smile wrapped around a loan shark's logic, but look past the surface, and what you're actually seeing is a man who knows exactly what business he's in and never confuses it with anything else. He extends credit he knows people can't repay, repossesses the vehicle at a profit, and moves on to the next transaction. There's no cruelty in it. There's no pride in it. It's just math with a human face. The operation is designed to run without heat, without spectacle, and without loose ends. That level of control isn't accidental. It's the product of a criminal mindset that prioritizes longevity over dominance, which, in Los Santos, is rarer than it sounds. Compare that approach to everyone else operating in Los Santos, and the contrast becomes stark almost immediately. Trevor Phillips runs on pure impulse. Every score he takes is as much about the chaos as the cash. He doesn't finish jobs cleanly, he finishes them loudly, with maximum collateral damage and zero regard for what comes next. Trevor is brilliant in the way that a natural disaster is brilliant, devastating, unpredictable, and completely indifferent to consequence. There's a reason Trevor and professionalism never share the same sentence. Street gangs like the Families and the Ballas operate on territorial ego. The job is secondary. Holding the block, sending the right message, making sure everyone on that corner knows who runs it, that's the primary currency, which means every operation carries emotional overhead. Every deal is also a statement. That kind of structure makes loyalty visible, but it also makes every transaction unstable. When ego is baked into the business model, the business is always one disrespect away from falling apart. Merriweather is the other extreme corporate militarism dressed up as private security. They have resources, they have infrastructure, but they're bloated, politically complicated, and reactive. They exist to enforce, not to think. And when something goes sideways for Merriweather, it goes sideways at helicopter and gunship scale. The FIB, Lester's network, even the triads that surface in the game's later acts, everyone in Los Santos operates with some form of ego, ideology, or institutional inertia getting in the way of clean execution. The Armenians don't fit any of those categories. They're transactional in a way that almost feels anachronistic in GTA 5's Los Santos. They're doing crime the old way, structured, targeted, low noise, just volume and discipline. And that old way has a face in this game. It's called Michael, circa North Yankton, 10 years before the story begins. Go back to the prologue. Ludendorff, North Yankton, 2004. Watch how Michael operates. He's neither panicking nor improvising. He moves through that bank job with the calm of someone who has done this so many times that the fear burned off years ago. He reads the room, he communicates clearly, he executes. Even when things start falling apart, when the job goes sideways, when the getaway becomes a disaster, his instinct is still to manage it, not react to it. He's already calculating the next move while Trevor is still in the problem. There's a specific moment that tells you everything. When the crew hits unexpected resistance and the job deteriorates, Michael doesn't spiral. He pivots. He's already in problem-solving mode before most people would have finished panicking. That's not luck. That's years of professional conditioning, the ability to separate what's happening from how you feel about what's happening, and act only on the former. That version of Michael ran a crew. He kept people in line. He had standards, not moral ones, but operational ones. No unnecessary bodies, controlled environments, calculated risk, crime treated as a profession with internal logic and discipline. He understood that the job surviving was more important than any individual ego in the room, including his own. He would have been completely at home in the Armenian operation. Not because they're the same type of criminal, Michael was a heist man, Simeon is a racket operator, but because they share the same foundational principle. Leave emotion at the door and do the job. That's the philosophy. The application is different. The core is identical. That's the man GTA 5 opens with. That's who he used to be. Now look at what 9 years of suburban comfort has produced. The moment Michael's story actually starts, not the prologue, but the real beginning, he's already coming apart at the seams. He's in therapy talking about feelings he can't name. He's watching his family disintegrate in a house he bought with money he's not supposed to have. He's bored in a way that's starting to feel dangerous, and he's been bored that way for years, which is somehow worse. The comfort didn't preserve him. It hollowed him out. Here's what 9 years of enforced retirement actually does to someone like Michael. It removes the one context in which his particular set of skills had value. He was built for high-pressure execution. He was wired for the clarity that comes when the stakes are real and the margin for error is zero. Take that away, replace it with a pool he doesn't swim in, a wife who resents him, kids who barely know him, and a therapist who keeps asking him to feel things, and what you get is a man whose edge has turned inward. All that discipline, all that suppressed emotion, with nowhere to go. It festers, and then he catches his wife's tennis coach in his bedroom, chases the man across Vinewood Hills in a borrowed contractor's truck, and tears a hillside house off its foundations with a winch cable, only to find out the house didn't belong to the coach at all. It belonged to the mistress of Martin Madrazo, one of the most dangerous men in Los Santos. The whole delicate architecture of Michael's fake life collapses in about 48 hours over a guy in his underwear jumping out a window. That's not a professional making a calculated decision, but a man running on bruised ego and accumulated resentment, finally finding an exit for a pressure that's been building for years. He doesn't just want to scare the coach, he wants to destroy something. And he does just completely the wrong thing, for completely the wrong reasons, with consequences he never thought through for a single second. That's the job that forces Michael out of retirement. Not a score, not an opportunity, a tantrum with a winch. Throughout GTA 5, this is the pattern. Michael does smart things, occasionally brilliant things, the museum job, the bureau infiltration, the structural genius of some of his planning sequences, but those moments of competence are surrounded by reactive decisions, emotional interference, and outcomes he didn't fully think through because he was too busy being angry or nostalgic or defensive or all three at once. He still has the instincts. He's lost the discipline that made them useful. He's impulsive now. Not Trevor-level impulsive, Michael still wears the costume of a rational man, still narrates himself as someone in control, but impulsive in ways that matter at the margins, which is where the difference between a professional and a liability always lives. He escalates when he should de-escalate. He makes it personal when it should stay business. He invests ego into situations that require detachment and then wonders why they cost more than they should have. So when Michael ends up entangled with Simeon and the Armenian operation through Franklin, through repossessions, through the increasingly messy chain of consequences that GTA 5 specializes in constructing the game, has quietly built something worth sitting with. Simeon runs exactly the kind of operation Michael used to embody. Structured, business first, unemotional. When Simeon feels disrespected or cheated, he doesn't explode, he adjusts the terms. He applies pressure through leverage. He escalates only as far as the transaction requires, then returns to baseline. He keeps the machine moving because the machine is the point. The Armenian mob doesn't do drama. Michael does drama now. He's been doing drama for years, and at some level, he knows it. That's what makes the psychological undercurrent of their collision so precise. When Michael humiliates Simeon, physically removes him from the equation in a way that's petty and personal and completely disproportionate to the business stakes, he's not acting like the man from North Yankton. He's acting like someone who's lost the thread. Someone who took a situation that required patience and made it into a statement. That's ego work, not professional work. The game never stops to point this out directly. There's no dialogue where Michael looks at Simeon's operation and says something reflective. Rockstar doesn't hand you the analysis. But structurally, the contrast is built into the architecture of the story, the composed operator, and the deteriorating one, occupying the same frame, responding to the same pressure in entirely different ways. You're watching a man collide with an echo of his former self and come away looking worse for it, not because the Armenians are more dangerous, not because Simeon is smarter, but because he's still doing what Michael used to do, with the composure Michael used to have, and Michael can no longer keep up with his own standard. That's the real weight of it. It's not failure by external measure. It's failure by self-comparison. Michael knows what disciplined crime looks like. He built a career on it. He's watching someone else operate by those principles and reacting to it like a man who resents being reminded of something he lost. The Armenian mob isn't a threat to Michael in the traditional sense. They're not powerful enough for that, and the game doesn't pretend otherwise. What they are is a reminder, a mirror pointed at what Michael was before he traded operational discipline for suburban comfort, and before that, comfort slowly turned him into someone who destroys a stranger's house over a tennis coach and then acts surprised by the consequences. The version of Michael that walked through that North Yankton bank in 2004 would have looked at present-day Michael and seen a liability, and he wouldn't have been wrong. If the Armenian mob shows us who Michael used to be, Trevor shows us what happens when someone never changes. That breakdown is next.